Guy on screen here is named Stu Peters. I've talked about him a few times, but let me just start from the beginning with him, okay? He is a Nazi. I mean, full-blown Nazi. It's not like, oh, I don't like the guy, so I'm going to call him that. No, I mean, he literally, he loves Hitler. He went on the Fresh and Fit podcast not too long ago. If you don't know these guys, I forget their name. Myron is the one on the left here, and I don't remember the other dude's name. Anyway, they have a big podcast, and they're basically like Andrew Tate's, pretty much. They're in the manosphere or whatever, the right-wing extremist manosphere, who think that women should learn their place and just shut their mouths and cook and clean for men and, all that other stuff. So anyway, Stu Peters went on their podcast to talk to them, and it got really fascinating. He talked about Nazism, funny enough. He talked about loving Hitler, and he made some really interesting claims about it. So I just want to kind of go through his claims and pick them apart a little bit and show you what kind of person this guy is, okay? This video is from May 24th, 2024. Give this a listen.
Yesterday, Newsweek called me a pro-Hitler Nazi. Raw Story called me a pro-Hitler Nazi. I don't know how these people get away. I mean, they said that I was a Holocaust denier, which is
yeah, all of that's true about him.
Completely false. Yep. Emphatically false. As a matter of fact,
it's emphatically false, huh? Okay. I wouldn't come on here unless I had proof otherwise, right? Unless I had proof that he really is a Hitler lover and a Nazi and all that stuff. I wouldn't be playing this if I didn't have the proof to lay down. If it's false, though, why doesn't he just sue them for defamation? If they're falsifying information about him, he should be able to, and he should sue for defamation. He shouldn't just let people get away with that. You know why he's not suing them for defamation? Because he actually said the things that they claimed. Now just keep listening here. I'll show you proof of that in a second.
False. Yep. Emphatically false. As a matter of fact, they made up a quote out of whole cloth and said,
no, they didn't.
Stu Peters said, quote, Hitler is a hero. I have never said any such
yes, he did
thing. And they can print this stuff with impunity because the hubris is so, because there's no accountability.
No, there is accountability in this type of situation. If they lied, you can sue them for defamation. Really, if it's that on the nose, if they are knowingly lying about something, they're just making something up, you can sue them for defamation. And he's got plenty of money. Stu Peters is significantly bigger than me, by a mile and a half. He's got the equivalent of millions of listeners. He's on Rumble. He's got his own podcast on his own website and everything. He's kicked off YouTube and all that. But he's got the equivalent of at least millions of listeners. On Rumble, I think he's got 500,000 subbies. He's got plenty of money. He could sue anybody he wanted to, but he doesn't. Wonder why? Because he knows he'd lose. That's why. Quick interjection, this won't take long, I promise. I'd appreciate it if you watched to the end of the video, or at least a couple extra seconds, because YouTube bases its algorithm off of watch time. The more watch time a video has, the further the video will go. Also, take a look at my website, owenmorgan.com. I'm selling my book, Understanding Jehovah's Witnesses, 400 pages, and my second book, 100 Questions for Jehovah's Witnesses, which is about 80 pages. And you can find them both there on the website. Audio form, ebook form, whatever. It's about my experiences within the religion and the history of the religion generally. The 100 questions are intended to challenge a religious leader, so I'd appreciate it if you give it a read. Okay, back to the video.
Because there's no accountability. Yep. And so they did this as a result of me announcing the Extreme Accountability event.
Right, so he's going to hold an Extreme Accountability event. He says Raw Story should face accountability. What he means when he says accountability is he wants to murder them. Really. I'm not even joking. I'm not being hyperbolic or anything. He wants them dead. In his words, wants to hang them from a thick rope until they're dead, quote unquote.
And that's what we are going to, before I take my last breath, we're going to exact extreme accountability on these people for what they're doing to our kids. Yeah. And I'm talking about a tribunal, whether it be military or citizen, and after conviction through a judicial process, whether it be expedient or not, after they are convicted for these crimes, we're going to hang them.
There you go. You know what I'm saying? That's extreme accountability in his mind. That's just plain accountability. That's what he means when he says accountability. And he was about to hold an accountability, or he called it an extreme accountability conference, where they were going to gather, all of his weird little supporters. They're all going to gather in New Jersey, some Caesar Hotel or something like that originally. And they were going to hold a book burning. They're going to collect books from their local libraries all across the country, throw them in a big pile, and light them on fire. And he uses Hitler as inspiration and is following the example. I'm not like just making that up. Like, he literally says that. I'll show you in a second. Caesars canceled the event. They pulled out. They said, I don't want to host you anymore. And then he went on to call them enablers of people who take advantage of children. I'm trying to say this in a monetizer-friendly way here. But he decided to find another venue. Okay, we'll look for another venue. While he's looking for another venue, something else happened. But just keep listening here, and we'll get to what happened just after his venue is canceled.
I'm dead serious.
Yeah.
But I didn't even say that in the announcement. What they were so bent about is that I said, hey, in modern day America, we need to bring book burning back.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, that was his goal, was to burn books at the event. All right, so here's what happened. I played another video a week ago, 2 weeks ago, of him saying that his venue was canceled. Caesars in Atlantic City, New Jersey, or somewhere like that. It was canceled by the hotel. And he was super upset by it. Within 24 hours of the announcement that he was holding his event there, Right Wing Watch tweeted about it, wrote articles about it, and a whole bunch of people called them and told him, like, what kind of a person he is. Saying that he wants to, like, hang people and that he's going to hold a book burning there and stuff. He's a Nazi, a full-blown, real, legitimate Nazi. They canceled, right? So it's fine. He's still got his ticket sales. He's just going to find a new venue. And then he released this video. This one is from early June 2024.
Well, Eventbrite has now officially joined the ranks of the pedophile sympathizers and enablers.
Uh-oh. Eventbrite. I used Eventbrite to host one of my events. It's a ticketing system, if you're unfamiliar. People can buy tickets, and you get the ticketing money, and it gets deposited into your account and stuff. They just manage all the taxes and the fees and the everything for you. Super convenient. Really difficult to do it yourself otherwise. Eventbrite canceled his account. And probably refunded all of the ticket sales for him. Oh, boy.
They have now kicked the Stu Peters Network and my Extreme Accountability event off of their ticketing website. Yeah, that's right. Eventbrite booted us from their website this week. And of course, this comes after Caesars of Atlantic City canceled our Extreme Accountability event reservations at that venue at the behest of the corporate media and a bunch of other disgusting, perverted cowards who are terrified of.
Well, actually, they canceled it because you said you intended to, like, hang people and that you love Hitler and stuff, that Hitler's a hero. Again, I have proof of that, and I'm going to show you in a minute. So he is obviously miffed, straight up miffed, over the fact that he had his ticket sales platform pull out, not working with him anymore. And he also doesn't have a venue anymore either. I wonder what he's going to do. I'm sure there's some scumbag corporation out there who'd be willing to host a Nazi book burning. I don't know who, but certainly somebody, right? Quick interjection. This won't take long, I promise. I just want to say I'd appreciate it if you check my Patreon. OwenMorgan.com/Patreon to find it. YouTube's algorithm goes up and down, so I can never predict where it's going to be. Having patrons gives me some level of stability. Okay, back to the video. Well, fascinatingly, this is the thing that really got this guy, like, this is the evidence that I was talking about. This next clip that I'm about to show you. This is also early June. He talked about Magnus Hirschfeld previously, and I watched a video about it from him. And he seems to be, like, really leaning into it. He wants to make it very clear that he cannot stand Magnus Hirschfeld. Now, if you don't know who that is, let me just read a little excerpt for you from a book. I read this little excerpt previously too, but it's pretty short. It'll give you an idea of what we're about to listen to. Okay, so there's a book titled The Coming of the Third Reich by Richard J. Evans. Phenomenally good book, phenomenal writer. It's super, super long, though. It's like a 30-hour Audible read. It's like 1,000 pages or something. But there's this one chapter, just a couple of pages here, one or two, that describes what happened to Magnus Hirschfeld. Just a little bit of context leading into this. Hirschfeld was gay, and he owned a sexology institute, or created a sexology institute in Berlin, Germany, in the 19-teens, 20s, 30s. I think all the way back to maybe the late 1800s, he ran this institute. He pioneered research into the transgender movement, into the gay movement. He pushed for gay rights, gay marriage, and everything else harder than maybe anybody else at that time. He was the biggest advocate you could imagine for LGBT rights. And the Nazis, when they were starting to come to power, he was the first one that they targeted. Gay people were the first ones targeted, and trans people and stuff. Hitler ran for office. He ran for president leading into the early 30s. And he lost to a guy named von Hindenburg, who was previously the president. Von Hindenburg was like super far right. He was a far right nutcase. So people had to choose between a far right nutcase and Hitler, who was very obviously even further right. So von Hindenburg wins, and at the time, the government in Germany was actually very similar to the government in the United States, like nearly identical in a lot of ways. They had a Congress building and congressmen. They even had something kind of like senators, and they had a president, von Hindenburg. But in their system, von Hindenburg, or the president, chooses a chancellor, kind of like, in the U.S. choosing a vice president, except the chancellor handles all political dealings. So the president handles military stuff, signs treaties and gets troops ready and orders them to war and whatever else. And he can also force elections to be held again. And the chancellor handles any bills being written, executive orders, things like that. That's how it worked in Germany, right? Well, 1933, Hitler signs the Enabling Act, or the Enabling Act is passed. And that act in 1933 basically allowed Hitler to legislate without consent of Congress. And von Hindenburg dissolved Congress, basically said we're going to hold new elections, and then just never held them. So the only government representatives were von Hindenburg, basically, and Hitler. That's pretty much it. And von Hindenburg just kind of disappeared into the background while Hitler wrote executive order after executive order and controlled everything. That's how he came to power in the first place. That was in early 1933 when the Enabling Act was officially passed. The Reichstag building, the Congress building, the Capitol, basically, burned down in early 1933. The new elections were ordered to be held, and then nothing ever happened. The Reichstag stayed gone, Capitol building stayed gone, and the congressmen just never held new elections. So 1933 is where we're starting out with Hirschfeld's Sexology Institute, okay? On the morning of May 6, 1933, a group of vans pulled up outside Dr. Magnus Hirschfeld's Institute for Sexual Science in the Smart Tiergarten district of Berlin. Out of them leapt students from the Berlin School for Physical Education, members of the National Socialist German Students' League. By the way, socialist at that time meant something completely different than what it means today. Socialist was totally unconnected from communist. Hitler fearmongered about communism just as much as Trump fearmongers about it today. Socialism at the time in Germany meant you were in favor of unemployment insurance, Social Security, the equivalent of Social Security or food stamps or whatever. Basically, you're in favor of social programs that make people's lives easier for the working man. And the national part of National Socialists means you're a nationalist. You want to force everybody to follow your lead. You want to force everybody to be a socialist at the butt of a gun if need be. Nationalism is always, always, always bad. Israel is filled with Jewish nationalists. They want the entire country of Israel to be unified under Jewish control and only Jewish control. White nationalists in the United States want only white people to control the government and preferably to separate from the black community entirely. Christian nationalists want to have only Christians in the government. In fact, have only Christians in the country at all. That's what a nationalist is. So we have National Socialists in Germany at the time. That's what Nazi stands for, is an abbreviation for National Socialist, in case you didn't know. So members of the National Socialist German Students' League jump out of a van. They drew up in military formation. Then, while some of them took out their trumpets and tubas and started to play patriotic music, The others marched into the building. Their intentions were clearly unfriendly. Hirschfeld's institute was well known in Berlin, not only for its championing of causes such as a legalization of homosexuality and abortion, and for its popular evening classes in sexual education, but also for its comprehensive collection of books and manuscripts on sexual topics, built up by the director since before the turn of the century. By 1933, which is when the Enabling Act was passed, of course, it housed between 12,000 and 20,000 books, estimates vary, and an even larger collection of photographs on sexual subjects. The Nazi students who stormed into the Institute on May 6, 1933, proceeded to pour red ink over books and manuscripts, played football with framed photographs, leaving the floor covered in shards of broken glass, and ransacked the cupboards and drawers, throwing their contents onto the floor. 4 days later, more vans arrived, this time with stormtroopers. Yes, that's really what German soldiers were called, stormtroopers. Is Star Wars starting to make more sense? This time with stormtroopers carrying baskets, into which they piled as many books and manuscripts as they could, and took them out onto the Opera Square. Here, they stacked them up in a gigantic heap and set light to them. About 10,000 books are said to have been consumed in the conflagration. As the fire burned on into the evening, the students carried a bust of the Institute's director into the square and threw it into the flames. Told that the 65-year-old Hirschfeld was abroad, recovering from an illness, the stormtrooper said, "Then hopefully he'll snuff it without us. Then we won't need to string him up or beat him to death." To string him up. That is literally exactly what Stu Peters said he wants to do to certain people, right? Extreme accountability. He wants to hold book burnings. Could it possibly be any clearer? Stu Peters is a Nazi. As a matter of fact, it could be clearer, and it's about to be. He talked about Magnus Hirschfeld, as I said previously, but this is a new one where he talked about it again. Listen to this. This one is from early June 2024.
I spoke on this program about the destruction of Berlin's Institute of Sexology, where subversive Jewish pervert Magnus
Yeah, that's Magnus Hirschfeld right there.
Hirschfeld pioneered the modern LGBT movement. He pioneered it then. He even performed primitive, disgusting transgender mutilation surgeries on gay men.
Yeah, this guy is just completely twisting everything out of proportion. I'm sure I don't even need to say that, but I'm going to anyway. This is a complete bastardization of what actually happened. He's not even representing it correctly. And in a lot of cases, he's just not even telling the truth, just making things up.
It was at the Hirschfeld Institute of Sexology that perverts and subversives laid plans to spread their disgusting virus all over the world, taking a specific interest, of course, in Christian and European nations, as well as the United States, also a Christian nation.
So he's formulating a conspiracy that Hirschfeld, I don't know why he keeps saying Hirschfeld, anyway, he's formulated a conspiracy that Hirschfeld, who was Jewish, plotted with other Jews and gay people to spread this virus of gayness and transness to the rest of the world. That is so psychotic, I don't even know what to do with it. It's so detached from reality. Like, it doesn't even represent reality to any degree.
Founded under God, which we will return it to. I think a lot of people think I'm bull about this extreme accountability stuff.
Again, when he says that, he means hang people. He means do exactly what the Nazis did, what we just read about in this World War II book.
They're scared to death, because I'm not. I'm dead serious. You want to call us extremists? Let me show you extreme.
Oh, so he's just embracing it then. He's proud of being an extremist.
But like I said, the freaks then were defeated. In fact, Berlin's Institute of Sexology was the site of the largest and most famous book burnings in history.
It's true.
It was raided by German students shortly after Adolf Hitler came to power, and the works of Hirschfeld, along with the piles of, including child, went up in flames.
Yeah, that's just completely nonsensical garbage, what he's saying here. He's conflating gay people with people who take advantage of children. That's not an accurate representation of reality. Gay people are no more likely to take advantage of kids than straight people. But he wants to tie them together. He wants to make you hate gay people by making you think that another already hated group, people who take advantage of children, are the same group. I mean, this is an old tactic, claiming that gay people take advantage of kids. This is an old tactic that's existed since, honestly, since these videos were taken in World War II.
All of it was burnt. It was removed from the face of the planet, and then the fun spread to at least 34 other German cities in a matter of days, with the works of Hirschfeld and his colleagues being ripped from the shelves all over the country and set to fire.
Yeah, it set back trans rights and gay rights and progress decades. We're still trying to recover from all of that. Honestly, disgusting and horrific and wrong.
Turned to ash. What an heroic act that was.
Huh, you catch that? Heroic act. Interesting. If I remember correctly, let's see, we're at 334. What was it he said that Newsweek and Raw Story and all them quoted him as saying it was completely wrong? What was that?
Raw Story called me a pro-Hitler Nazi. I don't know how these people get I mean, they said that I was a Holocaust denier, which is completely false, emphatically false. As a matter of fact, they made up a quote out of whole cloth and said, Stu Peters said, quote, Hitler is a hero.
Okay.
Bro, I have never said any such thing. And they...
All right, so he says he's never said any such thing. Nothing apparently even resembling Hitler was a hero, right? But just like literally like a week after he said that on Fresh and Fit, he's talking about Nazi book burnings as heroic acts. Okay, sure, I suppose in this one, he didn't explicitly say, quote, Hitler was a hero. But he said Nazis were doing heroic things. They were doing heroic acts. Any judge would see right through this. He doesn't bring a defamation case against Raw Story or whoever else because he'd lose. It would be a waste of his time and money, and he knows that. He's praising Nazis, the Nazi movement. Does it get clearer? And this isn't even what they were talking about. This one's new.
Heroic act that was. People wonder about why millions upon millions of people supported the rise of the National Socialists.
Supported the rise of Nazis. Remember, that's what that means.
Rise of the National Socialists. These people were backed into a corner.
No, they weren't. They were propagandized to shit. That was the problem. They were lied to and convinced that this minority group, honestly, a number of minority groups, were out to get them. Were trying to get them killed by sending them to war. The Jews believed that the Jews were in power at the top of government, and they ordered people to go to war and die. They believed that gay people and trans people were trying to get your kids, trying to convert them to be gay or whatever. That's how they got them whipped into a blood frenzy. They weren't backed into a corner. After World War I ended, 1918, 1919 vicinity, that's when like the Nazi movement really started to kind of gain ground. It was the most intense example of hyperinflation ever in recorded history. The gold mark, their currency of the time, was 200 gold marks per US dollar is what it was worth. And then it went up to 2,000 per US dollar, a tenfold increase. And then 2 million, and then 2 billion. 2 billion gold marks per 1 US dollar, and then 1 trillion per US dollar. Most intense case of hyperinflation ever recorded. People were selling themselves for sticks of butter. People were trying to grow plants in their windowsills because that's the only food that they could access. That kind of thing. It was bad, right? That was all the direct result of Wilhelm II, the emperor, the Kaiser, sending people out to fight in World War I, and trying to take France and failing. He was forced to sign the Treaty of Versailles, which ordered reparations be paid to the rest of the world for the damage that Germany did in World War I, and their currency became completely worthless after all of that happened. So Hitler comes in and he rides the National Socialist movement to the top and says, the Jews in power right now are to blame. He claimed that they're immigrants. He's blaming immigrants for the problems. Says the immigrants who are Jewish were the ones that sent us to war, to die, and to get gassed by the British in the trenches. When if we had just gassed 6,000 people at the top, these Jews, then our millions of men wouldn't have to have suffered that. That's how he justified move from one position to the next to the next. That's a logical steps that Hitler took to arrive at we should gas the Jews, basically. That is how Nazis rose to power. They propagandized and lied and fear-mongered and twisted everything completely out of proportion. By the late 1920s, things were actually pretty good for Germany. Their currency, they got rid of the gold mark, and they created a new currency that was linked to the price of gold. It was on the gold standard. But Germany was like completely destitute. They had nearly nothing. So they renegotiated the Treaty of Versailles to push their reparations payments back 5 years. So they just didn't have it to give to the rest of the world. So they renegotiated that, and things started to pick up a little bit. They started getting better. And after all of that suffering that the German people did after World War I, they were pissed off. They believed that the Germans were the superior race in all of Europe, in fact, all of the world, and that they were being mistreated terribly by the Jews of the countries around them who were controlling everything. And that is how they got whipped into a blood frenzy, like that. One logical step after another. It wasn't because gay people were trying to turn their kids gay, like Stu Peters is saying here. And it's wild to me that this guy is justifying hating gay people by identifying with the Nazis and saying the Nazis were ultimately innocent. That's what he's doing, right? I can say that comfortably, knowing that this guy is litigious and willing to come after people for defamation if they misrepresent him. I'm comfortable saying that he is excusing Nazi crimes by calling them heroic acts and saying that the Nazis were just trying to get rid of people who take advantage of children in society, which is synonymous with gay people in his mind.
These people were backed into a corner.
They were not. They were just hateful and violent and believed they were the best. That's all.
They were pushed to a breaking point, and they broke. When it came to standing for something, they chose to stand for their children.
Against the Jews?
Are there any real men left among us that will stand for our children?
So what he's saying with that line, it's kind of subtle there, not really, but he's saying you need to stand up and get your AR-15 and go down to wherever and pull the trigger now. He's trying to get people to take action now. Do it now. It's not like one day there's going to be a civil war, and when that civil war happens, no. He's saying do it now. We're starting. That's what Stu Peters is doing. If this isn't threat of imminent bodily harm, I don't know what is. This is illegal. Threat of imminent bodily harm is against the law. It is not protected under free speech. Like yelling fire in a crowded theater, for example. If you do something that leads directly to someone's harm or death, like hiring a hitman, you tell somebody, go kill that person, and then they go kill that person. That's illegal. You cannot do that. That's not protected under free speech. How is that any different than what Stu Peters is doing? Is he not calling for people to kill others? He is. How is he not in jail for this? Honestly, I am about as close to a free speech absolutist as it gets without actually crossing the line into you should be allowed to say literally anything no matter what. But this is a line. This right here, this crosses it.
These people will flee like Hirschfeld did. He fled the country. He went to France. He died a few years later, never returning to his former place of prominence among the perverts of the world who suddenly became stateless after thriving in the Judeo Republic of Weimar, Germany.
The Jewish Republic of Weimar, Germany. Yeah, that was the name of the government, the Weimar Republic, and it was a democracy like the United States. Stu Peters also said that he does not like democracy. It's dangerous, and we shouldn't have it. He said that in the Fresh and Fit podcast, too. But that's, I don't need to cover that right now. He is reaffirming all of the claims made by Hitler, saying that the Nazis committed acts of heroism. I'm sorry, man. If this is not calling Hitler a hero in spirit, if not in exact quote, then I don't know what is. Is this not calling him a hero?
In short, the destruction of Hirschfeld's demonic work was part of a massive cleansing process. It was beautiful, and it must take place once again for the sake of our children and all that is decent.
He's trying to inspire another Nazi revolution.
And it will take place again. But on the other side of the ocean, Magnus Hirschfeld is rearing his disgusting head from beyond the grave. In Germany, which has been completely overhauled by communists and perverts and with a vendetta against the German people.
By the way, just a quick note here. You hear him talking about communists and perverts and so on. Literally words right out of Hitler's mouth. That is exactly what Hitler said to get people whipped into a blood frenzy. He called people Bolsheviks. He talked about cultural Bolshevism. The Bolshevik Party was what would eventually become the Communist Party in Russia when communism took over in Russia. So when you call somebody a Bolshevik, you're calling them a communist. Hitler convinced von Hindenburg, the president, to order new elections to be held. Originally, it's called dissolving the government. Order new elections to be held because there were communists all through the government, and we need to root out the communists. That's what Hitler tried to convince von Hindenburg of. It was all about how evil communism is, start to finish. Stu Peters' ideas, beliefs, feelings, morality, everything, it all mirrors Hitler's exactly, precisely, practically. It's about as disturbing as it gets. And he's sitting here pretending that he was misrepresented. He's never said any such thing as Hitler was a hero or the Nazis committed acts of heroism. Never? Really? You've never said that?
People, May 14th of this year was declared Magnus Hirschfeld Day in Berlin, that country's capital city.
Yeah, that's because that was a minority group that was genocided by the Nazis. This is something that J.K. Rowling rejects too, by the way, called Holocaust denialism. If you're denying that the Holocaust played out the way that historians know that it played out, that we have records to prove that this is how it played out, you're a Holocaust denier.
And it was done at the behest of Berlin's so-called queer liaison officer. I'm serious, that actually exists. This queer liaison officer's entire job is making sure that Berlin serves as the rainbow capital of the world, a title that's also coveted by other cesspits like San Francisco and Tel Aviv.
Tel Aviv, of course, in Israel. He doesn't like Jews either. I don't know if that's been made clear or not. He thinks that Jews are running the world, of course. It's absolutely insane. Is Tel Aviv the gay capital of the world? I've never heard that before. Maybe, I suppose.
And this sickening holiday, which we refuse to call it.
Well, you just called it that, didn't you?
It wasn't just a day on the calendar to appease the queers.
See, he's using that word as a slur. You know, the queer community has reclaimed the word queer. Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, or questioning, either one, I guess. He's using it as a slur here. It's not just, he's not allowing people to reclaim it. What is wrong with this guy? How did he get like this? Did his parents, not love him enough? Did they hit him when he was little? I don't know. What happened?
It wasn't just a day on the calendar to appease the queers. No, it included a wreath-laying ceremony at a memorial dedicated to Hirschfeld. Museums around the entire city put up exhibits celebrating Hirschfeld and his fellow perverts, and this queer liaison officer called on Berliners to, quote, celebrate this Magnus Hirschfeld Day in such a way that we also see it as a protective shield of democracy. Now, what the hell does that even mean?
It means that this person was wronged terribly by an authoritarian dictator, and they want to recognize that fact so that this kind of thing never happens again. I thought that was made clear, but okay.
If Magnus Hirschfeld is democracy, then the entire West needs a new system of government.
I mean, he's calling to end democracy here, right? Again, he did this same exact thing in the Fresh and Fit interview. He called for an end to democracy. Oh, and by the way, his B-roll here on the side, he intentionally put like really, really graphic stuff in. Not like illegal things, just really graphic stuff that didn't even need to be in there. I don't know why he did that, so I blurred it.
Now, what's kind of amusing about all of this is that for decades, good old-fashioned German book burnings have been portrayed as some kind of an anti-academic purge in which science and math and history books were rounded up and destroyed.
Yes, exactly. That's correct.
That's fake.
No, that's what he's describing. That's what he wants to do.
See, that's a lie. Adolf Hitler and the rise of the National Socialists may be the most lied about people in world history.
If this is not Holocaust denialism, Holocaust revisionism, and effectively calling Hitler a hero, I don't know what is, honestly. He's coming after people who claim that about him. Like, this would not stand in a court of law for a single second. All I'd have to do is play this video of him, this whole thing, this like 8-minute video, and they'd throw the case out 15 seconds after the video ended.
Maybe the most lied about people in world history. Maybe. But now that LGBTism is on the offensive and staunchly supported by the modern-day Weimar perverts that we have running our governments, queers and trans and are being lionized as the ultimate victims of the Nazis.
Not the ultimate victims, but they were victims.
So it was a Holocaust against...
No. It was a Holocaust against anybody who didn't fit exactly within this very specific subset of people. White, German, Aryan, blonde hair, blue-eyed preferably, people who wanted to reproduce and birth their way into a master race. Everybody else was either a second-class citizen or killed. Straight up killed. You were gay? You're killed. You disagree with Hitler? You're a political prisoner in a death camp. You're killed. Jehovah's Witness, killed. Jews, killed. If you did not match up to what they wanted, you were killed.
Because we're not going to deny the Holocaust.
That's literally what he spent his entire time doing just now.
Bad things happen. Atrocities happened. Horrific things happened. Yeah, it was a war. It was a world war. But that world war, the purpose or the cause of that war was not the Holocaust, in which 6 million Jews were killed. It's just not true.
It is. As a matter of fact, it's true. Yes, it is. You know how we know that? Because Nazis kept meticulous records. We can go through all of their paperwork and see all the names of everybody who they killed and all kinds of stuff. They were nothing if not organized and good at bureaucracy. We know how many people died. And, as a matter of fact, there are people alive today who were in Auschwitz, this death camp. We can ask them. People still have tattoos on their arms. Not many left nowadays, because, you know, this is like 100 years ago now. But they're out there. In fact, there are still Nazi guards out there who've been tried, like even recently, for war crimes. Absolutely insane to me that this guy has the twig and berries to come out here and say what he's saying right now.
And that isn't anti-Semitic. And that's not because I hate Jews like the Rolling Stone likes to say.
He does, but that's not why.
Or how NBC News labeled me a dangerous individual and Facebook kicked me off of their platform forever.
The gall.
That's just the truth.
No, none of it is the truth. I mean, you're seeing why he was kicked off of every platform and labeled a dangerous individual and all that, right? This is just him endorsing Nazi ideology. I haven't even played... Well, I played a couple of parts where he endorsed taking people out violently, firing squad or whatever. I played a little bit of that, but that's like all he talks about between his Nazi rants.
Okay. Pervert TikTokers flocked to Berlin to celebrate Magnus Hirschfeld Day. They posted videos whining about thousands of books stuffed full of transgender being burnt.
I mean, there were books of all sorts there that talked about sexual subjects, and it was the first institute of its kind, and the biggest of its kind at the very least. And it's a loss to the world that we lost all of that information. It wasn't about dirty pictures. It was about losing information, research, studies, and all kinds of other things. 20 or 30,000 books, documents, and studies and things on these subjects, as The Coming of the Third Reich said by Richard J. Evans.
I'm not kidding. Watch for yourself.
It's the first time that the German parliament is hosting an exhibition about the LGBTQ plus victims of the Nazis. Around 100,000 gay and bi men were arrested, and thousands of queer people were sent to concentration camps. Many of them didn't survive.
We don't want to look at these people like the regime does. We want to give them their own voice and to be seen, and so we have to point out the varieties of arrangement, surviving and suffering.
Many of these photos have not been made public before.
But in a time when anti-LGBTQ plus misinformation,
as well as Holocaust revisionism, has become more prevalent online, the curators of this exhibition think it's much more than a lesson about Germany's dark past.
This exhibition points out very clearly that we have even lesbian, trans, inter people suffering the system, although the legal framework did not find regulation for their behavior.
You know, no one...
Well, that's actually interesting. I cannot, like, what could Stu Peters possibly say that's negative about this?
No one is even denying anymore. The Nazis were fighting perverts and...
No, they weren't. The Nazis were whipping people into a blood frenzy. What? He says no one is fighting that anymore? What? No, Nazis are still like in a minority, like a very, very small minority, but they're out there. And again, he has millions of listeners every month. It's hard to gauge exactly like how many subscribers he would have or whatever, because Rumble doesn't really compare to YouTube, neither does like Telegram or whatever else. But I would say he gets millions of views on his videos, if I had to guess. Millions of people agree with what he's saying. That's insane.
I'm absolutely not afraid to say that.
Yeah, we know.
Nazis were fighting against perverts and pedophiles. And some of those acts, including those Nazi book burnings, as they're called, were heroic acts.
There you go. Does it get clearer?
You see,
some of those Nazi acts were heroic acts. He just complained earlier about Newsweek or Rolling Stone or whoever else saying that he said that Hitler was heroic. Does it get clearer? He views Nazis as heroes.
You see, the National Socialists, they promised a return to normalcy.
I don't know what normalcy would be in this equation, and no, they didn't. That's not what that movement was about at all.
But the very same subversives who we find infiltrating the interior of our fake government, see, they set their sights on something that they want to pervert or destroy, and they...
Who's they? Are they in the room with us right now? He's talking about Jews or gay people setting their sights on things that they want to destroy or subvert, and they focus in on it and destroy it. That's what he's saying right now. This is psychotic.
Want to pervert or destroy, and they never stop until they get their teeth into it.
Get help, Stu.
And now they're telling us that those freaks were the good guys.
Well, I mean, they are accurate. Well, who is they? Again, who is they in this scenario? History accurately shows us that the LGBT community were victims of Nazi brutality. I don't get how he can deny this. But this bit right here at the end, I want to address this. One more thing here.
Nazi book burnings, as they're called, were heroic acts. You see, the National Socialists, they promised a return to normalcy.
They didn't. I just want to point this thing out right here. I'll tell you what the Nazis did. They promised a return to the old empire. So there had been two Reichs, or two empires, before the Weimar Republic. Weimar Republic itself is not considered an empire. That was the government that ran everything from the end of Wilhelm II's reign, the end of World War I, 1919 or so, all the way to 1933 after the Enabling Act when Hitler took over. That was the democratic government that operated very much like the United States. The Second Reich ran from, I believe, 1870-something all the way to 1919, basically, at the end of World War I. And when Hitler was getting people whipped into a blood frenzy, he kept saying, I want to go back to a better time. Make Germany great again. Is that sounding familiar at all? Make Germany great again. He looked back to a nostalgic past that was terrible. People suffered terribly. They lost wars. They didn't have anything. Their economy crashed and burned. They didn't have anywhere near as many freedoms as they did under the Weimar Republic. That wasn't a good time. Every fascist extremist movement like Hitler's look back to a previous bygone era with nostalgic lenses, as though it was better back then. Make America great again. Does that sound familiar? It's actually stolen from Ronald Reagan's slogan, which was, let's make America great. When was America great exactly? Usually it's the 1950s. That's kind of when they're looking back to. The 1950s were not great. Segregation was still in full effect. I mean, my parents went to segregated schools. People were treated terribly if they didn't fit within this very narrow, specific window. Women weren't allowed to have credit cards or bank accounts or get loans or whatever. Black people were not allowed to vote, I don't think, until like the 60s or the 70s or something. People were mistreated terribly. What are you looking back to that was good? It's a fictitious, mythical past that these fascist regimes are looking back to. It's not the real past. Hitler said, we're going to revive the empire. We're going to create a third Reich, a third empire, just like the second one when things were great under Wilhelm II. In fact, I believe that Wilhelm II, he was the emperor, the Kaiser, right at the end there of the Second Reich, before the Weimar Republic came to be. And I believe it was Hitler. It was either Hitler or von Hindenburg who basically got a hold of Wilhelm II, who had moved to the Netherlands to live out the rest of his life. They got a hold of him and got his endorsement. Not that it really meant anything or mattered, but that mythical past, looking back to a time when things were better, when they really weren't. That's what they were reaching for. That's what the United States is reaching for right now, or Donald Trump, at the very least. He's reaching for a mythical past. So Stu Peters is living in a fictitious world with this.
You see, the National Socialists, they promised a return to normalcy.
Well, I suppose that they promised a return to normalcy the same way that Donald Trump promised a return to normalcy, but there was no, like, breach of normalcy that went away exactly, unless you mean segregation. And Trump actually made things, like, significantly worse. He did not bring it back to what it used to be at all, and neither did Hitler. Anyway, the primary focus of Hitler, the main enemy that he named, that he really zeroed in on, was immigrants. And the immigrants that Germany dealt with, unlike America, where our immigrants are primarily like South Americans, Central Americans, you know, Mexicans and things. Unlike Mexicans in the United States, as a large portion of our immigrants, Jews were immigrants in Germany. We are following a line right now. We're following like a trend that already played out 100 years ago. I mean, Hitler even did his own January 6th that was called the Beer Hall Putsch. All of this is already played out. And Stu Peters seems to know that and is trying to push it down that direction even further. I'm glad he got canceled from Atlantic City Caesar Hotel or whatever. I'm glad they kicked him out. I'm glad Eventbrite yanked him from their platform. If he wants to create a gathering of Nazis who are going to burn books, then I suppose that's technically his right, whatever. But he's going to have to do it on his own. without the support of society, broader society. And I'm glad for that. Anyway, tell me what you think about it in the comments. This dude needs help. They all need help.